Great. So it's 8:59. Good evening, everybody. And we will get started in 3 minutes at exactly 9:02. I see a lot of people jumping on in the last 30 seconds. You are in the right place. We're just going to start. It's 9 o'clock right now, and we're going to start at 9:02. Nine oh one, guys, for the people who just jumped on. We'll be starting in one more minute. All right, guys, it's 9:02, and let's get to work. So, welcome to the third NILOA 2019 Director's Call. My name is PJ Colello. I'm your moderator. Uh, in Kevin's executive director report to the executive board last night, Kevin informed us that we are almost exactly halfway through the 2019 regular season. So it's a perfect time for another call. Abraham Lincoln said, "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe." The director's call is one of the ways that we work on sharpening our axes to deal with what has been a year with unique and new challenges. This call will continue to focus on the new and unique, but will take time to step back and deal also with some officiating basics perhaps we have all neglected as we have been so focused on the new. So let's get to chopping some wood, and allow me to turn this over to Tom Sutton, the NILOA Director of Officials Development, and Tom Abbott, the NCAA National Coordinator of Officials. Take it away, guys.
All right, thanks, and welcome to all. I'd just like to start off the call tonight, encouraging everybody to utilize the information that's provided on this call. Go back and review it from time to time. Encourage others that don't happen to watch it live to watch the recording. So all the information is shared. We try to build consistency by the use of these calls. We have received some form questions that indicate that not everybody is utilizing all the material, because some of the questions are been asked that definitely have been covered in the couple calls. So as PJ alluded to, I call it halftime. That's for MLAC's OG games. Division III might be a little bit behind that in 2, but not much. I can say we've survived so far. I can also say we probably need to finish a little stronger than what we started, which hopefully we're going to all do for sure. We need to keep working and really prepare and execute. That's what it comes down to. So, without any further ado, we'll run through what we're going to go through the agenda tonight. We got a shortened agenda. We hope to get you out of here. The basketball games are on, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're close to that hour limit again. But we'll do our best and be cognizant of the people's time commitment for sure. So we got mechanics discussion. We're going to talk about a communication piece that deals with how to communicate during the game. We're going to talk a little bit about conduct and what to do with some of those items. We're going to revisit the dive. I think we have 5 clips that are really good, and hopefully we can explain them so everybody can understand them. And then we're going to revisit a couple slides of body checking, legal or not legal, just to follow up from our last call. All right, so mechanic reminders. These are quick reminders. The officials, the wind arms on restarts. I've seen a couple films where we have some guys arm pumping. That's not our mechanic. The wind is important for clock operators. They don't see the arm pump as well as the wind, and our mechanic isn't winding on the restart. So let's make sure everybody's winding on the restart and get rid of the arm pump. One reset, all reset. This is important. There's a lot of blind spots on the field. Clock operators, especially if they're in a penalty box area, that they can't see everybody. One reset, all reset, and verbalize it. The verbalization helps us more than anybody else. And what I mean by us is us as officials. Say I'm watching a play. I'm keeping my eye on the shooter. I don't happen to know where the ball went. I don't know if it hit anything. But if my partner's verbalizing reset, I can now put my arm up and reset also. So the verbalization is a method of good communication for the officiating crew. Play on signal, then reset shot clock. A lot of people have asked me, why do we need to reset it right away? Well, there's good reasons why we need to reset the shot clock right away in the play on. Number one, it gets reset on the play on. But the biggest factor is if that shot clock happens to be running down, low in the count, 3, 2, 1, and we have a play on still, there could be a horn on that shot clock, the table could be blowing a horn, and now we got a confusing situation happening. So when you do a play on, reset the shot clock, hopefully it goes 80, the ball, you decide to let it through and they pick it up, reset it again. Face-off possession call and then reset. We agreed early in the first director call, I believe it was, we're going to wind on the face-off possession and then do a reset. You should inform your clock operator doing that. You also should inform the clock operator that you're going to wind your arm when the ball goes across the restraint line, but not necessarily give them a reset. So that plays a little bit different. And then we're going to give them a reset when somebody picks it up. Right? So when you're talking to your clock guy, make sure you do that. Typically, a second or two late on the reset is better than early. I'd rather see 82 on the clock than 78. I think it's pretty obvious to everybody why. You shorten that clearing count by a couple seconds sometimes, it's pretty significant. Not many people will notice the clock started a second or two late. So when you're talking to your shot clock guys, and when we're going to get ready to give the reset, make sure they got a good possession. Don't be quick giving the reset. Make sure they got a good possession, then reset it. Right? A couple seconds late, it's not going to hurt anything. Early, got a lot more problems. Another mechanic we changed earlier is we're no longer using the fingers as signal number for fouls at the bench. All right, you know how number one, we were doing that a couple different ways. Some people were doing it 2 hands. Some people were doing it 1 hand, turning it sideways. I guarantee you we were probably the only people that knew what turning a 2 sideways was, 2 straight up. The bench people really listen to our verbal communication. I think it's important that we do good verbal communication and not worry about our fingers. So if we can drop the finger signal for the fouls, again, I don't believe any bench personnel really understand it. So we're going to try to eliminate that, or we are going to eliminate it, not try. Okay. So we talked about, having a process of mechanic change. I don't know, on the first director call probably, and that has seemed to work. We've gathered some feedback, some information on how we can improve the communication between the officiating crew as it pertains to the 60-second or less for failure, advanced, or over and back. We know that it's been proven, as expected, that this play is a very difficult play to officiate. There's so many moving parts. There's no way every official can see a signal. Perhaps we're doing the signal at the wrong point, and we're going to talk about how we're going to do it in the future, and then why we're going to change it. So we will be changing this mechanic a little bit, and hopefully it's going to help serve you guys better. This is a call we need help from all officials. All right, you can't relax. Again, we talked about refereeing the whole game, downtime, everything else. This is one we can't relax on. If you think you're going to get a breather because you're lead and really don't have a lot of responsibilities until that ball gets to you, well, we got to think of a different way now. So everybody needs to be paying attention to where the clock is and help each other on this 60-second deal. All right, so what is changing? The pointing of the arm, it hasn't been consistent. I've seen it done multiple ways. In the pregame, I've heard it talked about multiple ways. So people are doing it different now. We want to come together in agreement and do this mechanic going forward in this method. All right, so we're going to do it immediately. For anybody who's got a game tomorrow, this is what we're going to do. It was felt originally when we set this up that the point was when the guy crossed over to the offensive half. We since reconsidered that and felt it more helpful to point when the clock reaches 60. It gives our partners indication, all right, it should be cleared or the over and back is active at this point. So we are going to change our philosophy and we're going to use the point in the same method, shoulder height in the direction of play when the clock reaches 60. We're also going to verbalize. We verbalize this reset on the shot clock. I talked about it earlier and how that is helpful. We felt that not everybody is going to be able to see a arm signal because the play might be right in front of them. They can't move their head. They can't move their head to watch the clock. They won't be looking at their partner, which is okay. All right, we still got to referee this game, and that's the most important thing we got to remember. So if we're verbalizing the shot clock at 60, we have a better chance of alerting our partner, hey, we got to make a decision. Did they clear it, or is this an over and back? All right, so we're going to point down the field, and then we're going to verbalize by using the word under. We wanted to keep it short. We thought under described it good enough.
Tommy, I'm just going to cut in for a second here. Fellas, the important part about this mechanic is that it's a direction that we want to go in when the time is important for the players and for us. So we feel it's important for guys to visually look at one another. You may not be able to do this every time because there's going to be action in front of you, players in front of you, things that are occurring from time to time right when we get to 60. So there's a lot going on, but it's important that we visually know that we're going to look at one another, we're going to point, and we're going to try to officiate those plays. And that's just a timing mechanism on a clear. When we get near 60, we need to be able to be aware that this is going to occur, and it's another way to just recheck with our partners in a visual manner. I've said this for a long time. Visual refereeing is about your partners as much as it is the game. So this is part of the mechanic that I think is important. That'll bring you together as a group as we move forward.
And I agree with that 100%, Tommy. And what I also might do is raise our clock awareness a little bit more.
Exactly.
Might be a little learning opportunity there also, right?
Yep.
So this is not, just so I'm very clear and I can help and maybe answer some questions, this is the approved mechanic is to use the word under, and the approved mechanic, you're not telling people to take their eyes off the play, to look at the clock, to point. What you are saying is the person at that time whose job it is, who's not the on official, who sees the clock, it is that person's job to acknowledge that we're at 60 with a visual and a verbal.
That's correct.
That's correct, DJ.
It may not be the single side because he's got a lot going on. It may not be the trail. Good possibility to be the lead or the trail. So
we're saying it's the responsibility of the entire crew to be aware of this and to know.
Could you please go back one and go back to that previous slide? Guys would like to reread that slide. Do you mind? Thank you.
And
guys, you could take a screenshot of this, but don't forget, there's nothing that you are currently watching that you can't go back and rewatch again.
And yep. And we're going to do this every time it reaches 60. We decided let's try to be consistent with this. So every time the clock reaches 60, we're going to do it no matter where it is on the field.
Under the current rules, guys, this is something that we felt was important to bring some sort of general consensus to the entire group and make us more aware of what's going on as a group. As time goes on and things happen, maybe next year this entire thing could change if the rule changes. So for right now, it's important to get us all on the same page.
Yep, and like Tommy said, I mean, we've changed this from when we started this year because we've had a number of games and we figured out a little bit better way to do it, and hopefully this is a better way. But this is probably what we're going to go through the end of the year with. We can't be changing it all the time.
Thanks, guys. All right, you can click through that site.
All right. Okay. Tommy, you want to?
Yeah, I can start on the communication aspect of it. A lot of what we see in rating evaluations from coaches when they come through is a communication aspect that they feel that we're either not communicating with them properly or not enough. And again, that's a function of sometimes how they approach us. But hopefully this section here will give us a little bit of a better understanding of what we expect. Just remember that when we make a call, roughly half the folks on that field and half the folks in the stands are going to disagree with us. If we get lucky enough, we might have one where they agree on everything, but that's pretty rare. So you need to be prepared for taking a little bit of flack. Prepare yourself to be criticized for whatever you may or may not call. And again, it's just as important on calls that you don't make as it is on ones you do. And then think about whether or not you actually deserve some criticism. There are times when you make a call. I know when I was making them, there were times that I wondered what the heck I was doing, what I was thinking on that play. So if there's something that you've called or haven't called, and you think maybe you might have been a little bit off on that play, make sure that you know that you can take some criticism from a coach and be able to handle that properly. That's part of game management. Part of this is also whether or not a coach comes at you and makes a comment, or is he phrasing it as a question? Most of these guys are really trying to figure out how to coach their kids. And that'll come at you as a question. If it's a comment, then you're going to have to deal with how to respond to it. So literally the next part here when we come up on the next bullet point is to stay calm. This is stuff that we talked about before. Try to remain as calm as you can. do as I say, not as I did. There were times when I wasn't very calm either, but that's human nature. Try to maintain an even voice, keep your demeanor the right way, be polite, be professional, even if they're not. Try to be short and concise on your answers. The longer you talk or elaborate on something, the worse it gets sometimes. So try to keep it short and make your sentences and responses quick.
Yeah, I just want to go back and touch on a couple things. Tommy, you mentioned it briefly, but this is all part of game management. Tommy mentioned game management. This is all part of it. When we do it appropriately, the game will go smoother. The best of the best know how, when, and what to say. Even then, we aren't saying it's going to be easy and it's going to work all the time. We realize that, right? They go off in orbit. It's a tough thing to bring them back. But if you're communicating in what Tommy just went through here, I think it will help a lot. And going back to the comment versus question, sometimes a comment doesn't deserve an answer or a response, right? Coach says that was a slash. Well, he knows what I did because I didn't throw a flag or whatever, right? So he knows I didn't think it was a slash. So sometimes the comments only excite the conversation. So decide whether you're going to respond to a comment. I always respond to a question if it's asked in a professional manner.
So here's a couple of keys on how to maybe do this a little better. And again, it depends on the situation that we're dealing with. You can have a conversation with a coach without really facing them. Sometimes when you turn around and go face to face, it makes it worse. So if you stand there and you back him off away from the play or the field, make sure that you're still watching what's going on in front of you. You can still referee that game and listen to what he has to say. Avoid sarcasm, because there's only a few of us that can actually pull that off. I was not one of them, but there are some who can get away with it. Sometimes it can be taken the wrong way. Try to keep it as professional as you can. Ask yourself if there's a misunderstanding on something. Maybe we didn't explain it right. Maybe we had an issue or we didn't understand what the question was. I can remember several times where a coach would ask me a question I had no idea what he was asking about until the next time down the field. So as trail, I would stop over and communicate that answer at that point. Remember that after you make or don't make a call, and there's a comment made, you've got another decision to make in another 10 or 15 seconds, or even less than that, when the play is in front of you. So you need to have a short memory, and that's the same thing we ask of them. They essentially, we'll tell them to get off something, and they get off it. They move on to the next play, and we have to, because that's what our job is. And essentially, this is a comment that I got from Walt years ago. Terry McNabb and I used to talk about it all the time. When everyone else is losing their minds, we need to make sure that we keep ours. It's critical. It's the only way you can maintain professionalism and move on to that next play. And it shows them that you're in charge of your own emotions, and that you're in charge of what's going on that field. And you haven't swayed your decision-making process at all. Okay, establishing a communication protocol with a head coach. Basically, you're going to give them some time when it's appropriate. If there's a play there, you can't do it. You can't do it at that time. Tell them to come back and talk to them. Try to eliminate any conversations with assistant coaches or any kind of input that they have. This is one of the major items that they have on their protocol right now. Assistant coaches are having too much input. My suggestion would be to make a nice friend out of the substitution coach, because he's going to have to be the guy that's going to help you out a couple times. Make sure you can answer questions. If you have to, have some sections in the rule book you can cite. Sometimes they'll help you. Try not to yell. That's really the key thing. If they're yelling, I ask them not to yell. I'm standing right here, coach. Please don't yell. What do you want? And when things get really bad, you need to know where that line is. You don't have to threaten them with it, but make sure that you know where your line is. And when they cross it, make sure you deal with it correctly. We talked about it on the last call. We have the tools, and we need to use them. There's a lot of people on the sidelines now, and it's important to make sure that you're dealing with head coaches and remind them that they're in charge of their entire staff. That includes trainers, people that are there for video personnel, any kind of other personnel that might be there. They're in charge of that group. Remind them that they're the guys that have to control that group.
All right. As we go to the next few slides, Tommy's going to go over some, comments that been received on game reports. This is just a small sampling. You guys all need to understand that. We do get indications of communication that is done very well also, but we wanted to address and give you some tools to help address some of the concerns that have been voiced. It's important for us to attempt to reduce communication breakdowns. That's what we're trying to do in this call today by giving you them tips. Hopefully the tools or suggestions we provided will help, right? That's our hope. So as Tommy goes through these, we need to kind of understand where they're coming from. And we believe me, we understand there's two sides of everything during the game, but some of these comments are pretty well written and pretty accurate, I would assume, from watching some game film.
So, like Tom said, the heat of the battle is really what the deal is. If we lose our cool, we're going to get some comments like this. Before the game, wouldn't have a conversation with me, but had a long conversation or a chat with the other coach. We talked about this last year and the year before. Spend equal time with both coaches. It's really important. Try not to let them get their video cameras out or any of their iPads. Talk about captains in home. If you spend 2 minutes with one coach, spend 2 with the other. If you spend 5 with one, you better spend 5 with the other. If one of them brings up something that's important to the entire group, then you need to bring that to the other coach's attention. Another comment told me the other 2 officials didn't make calls because he had 11 more years of experience. Well, obviously that's something we don't want to say. We're out there together as a crew, and that's the scenario. This comment, well, we missed that one. Oh, we missed that one. If a coach says something and you say to him, oh, we missed that one. Better comment might be, Coach, I didn't think we had a very good angle on that. Try to diffuse it so that it's not a comment that can come back and haunt you. Didn't appreciate his style or aggressiveness towards me. Acted aggressive towards me throughout the entire game. There were comments on some reading cards that were like that. And by the way, these fellas are all comments that are negative. I got to tell you before we even go any further that a lot of the comments we get are positive. So these are only minor ones that happen on evaluation sheets. There are many, many that are very good, but these are just some of the ones that we want to try to avoid. Another one, inquired after a warding off penalty on a player dodging with 2 hands on his stick. Again, we got to remember what rules we're playing by. High school starting, college rules, you're not warding off with 2 hands on your stick. So make sure these comments are reference to the rules that we're dealing with. We had one the other day. Somebody asked a comment about the defender jumping in the goal. We don't have that rule in our college game. It's a high school game. We can go to the next one, Tommy. Comments to my players that he worked in a Division I game and knew better than I. Again, you're an official. No matter who you are, you're an official. It doesn't matter what game level you've been at. Every day is a different day. Came off as condescending and unprofessional. We covered that before. Try to avoid that if you can. Threaten me with a flag. I think there are other ways to go about this. Don't threaten them with something. Just simply use it if you have to. Coach, you're getting pretty close to the line. I've had enough. Don't threaten them with something. If you have to threaten them, you actually have to follow through, or your word's not good. From the start of the game, this official was yelling at the coach. Antagonistic, inappropriate, seemed to have a problem that affected his judgment. And again, they get into judgment. Once you start with a comment like this, where it's antagonistic, it goes through their entire evaluation, and it deals with. I feel that he was baiting me on the bench at one point. We can't afford to do this. We need to make sure that our comments are quick and concise, and we move on. Don't bait coaches into calls.
All right, I can take this from here.
Yep.
Tom, on this one.
Yep.
The board had an executive board meeting last night, and in a report made by Kevin O'Leary, executive director, as our executive director, and you know, he gets to review the unusual circumstances in game reports, etc. You know, at the end of the game, we've had some issues with behavior, not only from on-field people, but from fans, encounters going to our cars, etc. You know, we shouldn't be subject to abuse, bottom line. If it's an on-field situation, we need to decide if no penalty or ejection. If you're going to go risk your, you know, getting abused by going to the table and you know, recording a 1 or 2 minute foul for unsportsmanlike, you might as well not go there. If it's, you know, if it's not bad enough for an ejection, I wouldn't even bother going back, because unless the coach gets ejected at that point, it's probably not going to have much influence on, you know, what the school does to them. So, a couple things, reminders again. We've seen game reports without the unusual circumstance checked. You know, Tommy Abbott, the RAs, Kevin O'Leary, they all need to know about these things. So if you don't check that box, they don't get notified immediately when that report's filed. They have to go back and try to review them all, and that's you know, time consuming when there's unusual circumstance that needs to be addressed. So if you had an objection or an issue with security, you are to call, text, or email your RA or assigner within 2 hours of the game. So if you get in the locker room, you talk about it, make sure you get it to the assigner or the RA. Again, we've seen some game reports that have not been good when it comes to security issues. That's totally unacceptable. And I think in most cases, and Tommy can probably vouch for this, the schools will take care of it if they know about it. If we don't inform them, then they don't know about it. It's unacceptable to be walking through the parking lot and get almost accosted by fans. It's unacceptable to be ridiculed on the sideline because they can't have spectator lines and the people are standing on the sideline. So all that stuff needs to go in a game report, and the unusual circumstances need to be checked. Again, that's why we need to know about them. They need to be worked on immediately. Some schools during break play every other day. If we don't deal with it, the players don't get suspended, or the coaches don't get suspended as they should be. I will say the RAs or signers, and I know Tommy's been in on some of these, have been dealing with these in a positive way. The schools and the conferences.
You know, the bottom line here, guys, is if you have something like this, just get it to us right away. They've been really positive. The RAs and the signers have been really on top of this most of the year. And if it's a situation we can correct it, it's corrected pretty quickly. So just make sure we know.
Yeah, and we've seen a lot of conferences, you know, really back what we call. So there shouldn't be an issue there. All right, Tommy.
All right, we're going to talk about the dive.
Before we dive into the dive, how's that? That's pretty good. Before we dive into the dive,
I like that.
TA, can you go back and touch on you had said something 2 sentences in a row. You had said about assistants and non-head coaching personnel on the sideline, but it was important to make friends with the substitution coach. Can you just touch on once more the difference between an assistant who is asking a question or is just looking for a clarification on where the ball is or a timeout, and a substitution coach and assistant's abuse? I don't want it was people thought it was a mixed message. I know it wasn't a mixed message, but I'm wondering if you could maybe extrapolate on that just briefly before we get
I can. Essentially, PJ, you're right. It's a discussion about a coach who generally will help you with substitutions. The substitution coach is a guy who's got players in and out. He's got his hands full. He's so busy doing what he has to do to get the right kids on the field at the right time. If we have a conversation with him prior to the game, generally those guys will help us out by doing the right thing, getting the kids on and off the field. If it turns to a negative comment, and that's literally what we're talking about with not dealing with assistant coaches or other team personnel. The head coaches who we talk to about calls, if there are negative comments, derogatory comments coming from the bench area that are coming from coaches or players or other assistants, that needs to be handled in a different fashion. So that's all that means. Literally, it's the type of comment that you're going to have. Substitution coaches will help you if you get them on your side. Generally, they're not the guys screaming at you about plays because they're so busy trying to deal with substitutions. That's all that meant.
Great. Let's dive into the dive.
Okay. Essentially, the dive play obviously is the biggest one on our plate right now. I joke about the fact I haven't heard much on faceoffs, and it's honestly the truth because this play has taken precedent in our game right now because of the volatile and the speed of the play and what happens with both offensive and defensive players. So we're going to try to show you some film clips. And again, this is not picking on any team, any coach, any player, any official. All of these clips that we're going to show you are going to be discussed and have items in them that are going to help us get better at making this call. There will be no major changes in this rule from the NCAA until the end of the season, if there are any. I'm sure they're going to have some comments on it, but we have discussed it at that level several times over the last month, and we're just going to do our best job to referee this play. So essentially, what you're going to see in some of these film clips, we talked on it for all three of the director's calls now. This one is going to be focused a little bit more on penalties that are administered, and we really aren't taking into account the amount or the severity of defensive contact. So that's what you're going to see in some of these. It's likely that multiple fouls can occur. I made a comment last time at the last director's call that we're better off if we throw flags. And certainly there are flags. And I get it. This play is tough. We're looking at the direction of the play, whether or not there's contact, whether there's a guy in the crease, whether or not there's foul. But I think overall we have erred on the side of not penalizing defensive contact to the stage that it needs to be called. The administration of penalties is easier if the penalty time is uneven. So if you have an illegal dive and a push, it's easier to administrate. You're going to have simultaneous fouls in some cases, and that's the way it is. So we need to be prepared for that. So here's an example. What you're going to see on some of these clips, player A1 dives in a direction that's not away. And again, I want to make sure that everyone understands that the away direction has to be very clearly away. I'm not telling you what that is, but it needs to be very clearly away. So here's a player who dives in a direction that's not away. Player B1 pushes, and we have a 1-minute foul on A1 for bad direction and a 30-second foul on B1 for his push. So essentially, who's awarded the ball and where? That's what you have to consider. Second example is, and everybody should know where that goes, by the way. Second example is going to be the same as what we have above, but this time B1 severely cross-checks. He doesn't push, he severely cross-checks instead of pushes. B receives a 2-minute foul, A receives a 1-minute foul. Same situation. Who's awarded the ball and where? Those time frames are unequal, and we should know. Adjudications based on less penalty time since the simultaneous fouls. The ball's awarded on the outside of the box. So you're going to keep it where it is, roughly the same vicinity on the field, and you're going to give it to the team that had lesser time.
Yeah, and the A award is relating to the second example.
Right.
You're going to have a different scenario up in the first
Different
one.
scenario for B. B, you're going to have a restart someplace near the vicinity of the crease.
Right.
Try
B
to
is going
sort,
to get, right.
try
B
to
is going
sort
to
it
get the
out.
ball in
Right.
the first one.
Try to sort it out.
Yep. B is going to get the ball in the first one. A is going to get it in the second one.
And that restart should not occur with our pants on fire. We need to take time and make sure that we have what we have and then get the ball where it belongs. Okay, here's another example. Player B1 slashes. So A1's got the ball, he's in white, B1 is in red. So B slashes, you got a flag down and a slow whistle. And now play continues. We've had this a lot. It happens with our slow whistle. Play continues. May pass it to another teammate. It comes back to A1. Somebody dives in the wrong direction. It's not away. So we clearly have a slash, and we clearly have A1 diving into the crease, and the play stops when contact with the crease occurs. Most of the time, we're going to have, well, first of all, you're going to have simultaneous foul. But most of the time, where are we going to award the ball? We stop play when it's in the crease. And therefore, probably it's already been shot. It's been knocked loose. So when penalty time is equal, the ball should be considered loose at the time of the stoppage of play. AP is going to be used. Award the ball in the same relative location. At the time of the play, the ball was loose when we stopped the play. That's how we're going to try to deal with this situation so that alternate possession is used. And there's going to be a few of them. It's tough, guys. I get it. Simultaneous fouls is a hard thing to deal with. It's a little different in basketball because you can tell sequence, but in our rule book, live ball play, anything that happens in that live ball play is simultaneous. And when we stopped it, the ball was loose. So in this case, that's what we're going to do.
And you probably heard some guys make mention of live, leave it, dead, move it. Live ball, live is referring to live ball fouls. You're going to leave it where it is. Dead ball fouls is when you move it. So that's what Tommy's saying. It's a live ball foul. We're gonna leave it where it is.
So here we've got some clips, and again, this is
okay. Hold on. The before we go any further, because my computer has now officially blown up. I'm getting multiple emails, texts. I love everyone for sending me messages in different ways. It's very helpful and easy to keep track of. Yes, TA and Suddy, in a normal situation, when you have two fouls like that, the initial flag would denote possession by rule. The initial flag would denote possession. You have a 1-minute foul, slow whistle, another 1-minute foul. The initial flag would denote possession. But we are not talking about every situation. We are talking about the dive situation. And in this instance, the approved ruling from the National Coordinator of Officials on this situation is AP.
And the reason, PJ, is that in this scenario, in most scenarios, if the play that I gave you before was a slash on red, B1 slashes A1, and play continued, and A1 turned around and slashed B1 back, we would have a stoppage of play because the offensive team fouled. In that case, you're going to have, in all likelihood, a scenario where simultaneous fouls, the ball is in somebody's stick, the team that had it keeps it. So what we're saying with the dive play is when we stop play, in that situation when penalty times are absolutely equal and cannot be determined to be not equal, the ball is loose and we're going to go to AP on the dive play.
Now, if you have a 2-minute dive, then your example is moot because, of course, 2-minute foul overweighs the 1-minute foul.
Correct. That's
That's
why
why
the whole
This
first
is
part of
why
that portion was unequal times.
what I'm trying to make clear for those who are listening now and for those who will listen in the future is this is not your opinion. This is the approved ruling on this play. Flag down, slow whistle, dive, AP.
The dive play is different than everything else we've had
That's
up to this point.
Thank you very much. I think that you just answered many questions. Moving on.
Okay, so now we're going to move into some clips. And we've given you the scenario at the top. This clip is a situation where you're going to see, we all believe who went through and reviewed these clips, this is good direction by the attacker, so he is away. And the defender comes in with a 1-minute cross check. It is difficult to see whether or not contact occurs with the goalkeeper on this shot. You watch it 100 times and sort of looks like he makes contact before the ball is in, but then the next time you look at it, it looks like it might be in already. So the scenario is the direction's good, and it's a 1-minute cross check on the defender. Tommy, you can run it through. And again, it's a little choppy. Player comes from behind and makes a good move, beats the defender, stays in a direction that's away, and gets hammered from behind. The defender comes a long way away, several steps, and cross-checks him pretty viciously extended. There's a good shot of it right there. And the ball is in about the time that he hits the helmet with the stick.
I think if we're going to err, I think we decided we're going to err on no goal because we got a defensive foul. And
Right.
I believe it's a no goal. I think the contact happens and the ball is above the goalie's head. But again, the film is kind of blurry, but he hits the goalie right in the face mask because you can see the goalie indicate.
Film is blurry and we've got a defensive foul. So the cross check is pretty vicious. We need to take these. These are ones we have to take. We've been getting away from this a little bit. The second clip is kind of the same thing. Player comes from the far corner. The direction is away. This defender comes a lot farther and is way more vicious than the first one you just saw. He's traveling probably 7 yards anyway. The trail could help on this play. The trail may have a good angle if this is not a fast break. This looks like it's a restart because the single side official is on the far side coming in by the shot clock. So the unobstructed view could be from the trail. The film's not clear enough to show whether or not it's a goal or no goal with contact, but this is, again, a good direction, we believe, by the attacker. Again, the crease is hard to see, too, here, but it's a good clip. You'll see what we're talking about when we run it through. This guy takes out not only the attackman, but his own goalie with this check.
I think it's important to watch where this defender comes from. This is a slide defender.
He is way out to the far left now. And he's coming 7 or 8 yards on a full dead run and cross-checks this guy in the back. Those types of plays are absolutely 2-minute fouls on the defender. If this play occurred in midfield, we would have no doubt about it. But I think because we're dealing with shot clocks winding down and potential crease contact, it's a tough play for us to call. But I think the point of this whole series of videos in a row is that we need to make sure that the defenders are fouled as if it was somewhere else on the field. This is an illegal check. Third clip, this one's got, we believe, good direction by the attacker. He's coming, you'll see him, he's in black. He's going to be coming across the front face of the cage from the left of the screen to the right. He takes a shot. He's trying to shuffle past the guy who's going to hit him, who I think is number 17, and is driven into the goal crease area. So in this case, we believe direction is away. He appears to be grounded, and it's more of a push on the defender than anything else, and really probably not much on the attacking player. And in this case, the lead official is behind the cage a little. The single's coming in to follow, and trail is partially blocked out, I believe, by some of the players who are potentially in the way. Feed comes across, and again, it's kind of choppy, but the player catching the ball is moving from left to right, and all of a sudden he goes in a different direction due to contact to his backside in a cross-checking motion. And again, trail's got a lot in between him and the play, and the lead and single have pretty good view of it. My concern here is we don't want to signal goal too soon, although the official on the play was convicted that his conviction was that it was a good goal or there was a foul. We want to try to discuss this if we can before signaling, if we can. And there was quite a bit of conversation apparently on this one. So we believe the player stayed grounded. He didn't go there on his own. He had help.
TA, can you please touch on between these two last clips you had, the first clip and the second clip, the different role of trail in each clip? What trail's role was in the first clip and the second?
I think literally what we're talking about is we tried to say that if it's in settled situation, we can have three officials referee this play, and a lot of times trail can help with direction. It may be coming at him. The second clip, the player was coming right at him with pretty much an unobstructed view. This one, the third one, was a little bit tougher because he's coming across, and there were players that were in there, and he was straight lined by the player who made contact with the attacking. The player in white pushed the player in black, and they both had their backs to the trail with players in between them. So it's hard to get a distinctive view from a trail, or for anyone when you're straight line like that. The other one was on the far side corner of the crease, the second one, and our view's a little better at trail. If trail needed to help, he could help. So here's another clip on this one. We believe the defender starts to ride the offensive player in blue. Offense is in blue, defense in white. There's contact that does not allow the attacker to go upfield. You'll see, not necessarily from this view, but from the side view, that the attacking player is trying to get to his right to come upfield, and the player in white clearly cross-checks him and then extends to the point where he is leaving his own feet to make the check. And the end of this thing, the view does show that the ball goes in the goal prior to any contact with the crease. From that angle, it looks like he sort of is going towards the goalie, but you'll see in the next clip that he clearly gets ramrodded from behind. He's trying to go upfield right now and can't, and just gets crushed in the back, which causes him to land at the goalie's feet. I don't know if Tommy can slow it down or not, but from one of
Yep, I will.
you can see it that the ball is in prior to. These guys did actually a pretty good job with this play. Both were in very good position. They followed the ball in and came in when it happened. And had a pretty good view of it. And again, that's key. If you can follow, get the proper angle. That player's trying to get to his right and can't.
Ball's definitely in before he hits.
That ball is definitely in before any part of his body hits the ground or the crease area. He actually tried to stay grounded, but this last thrust right here by this player in white causes him to leave his feet because he's trying not to get killed.
I think
you and Suddy wanted a flag here, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe there isn't.
Yeah,
I want to apologize. I'm sorry. Maybe there is a flag and we just don't see it. But I just want to let our membership know that maybe there is a flag back there somewhere, but we don't see the flag in the clip.
Right. So the key, guys, is last time I said this, we're better off when we have flags. We know that something here is not right. And the point of this whole deal, the first 4 clips are defenders taking liberties on attackmen who are clearly trying to get to a position that they are trying to go away, and they're getting clobbered. The last clip here is a little different. It's this attacker from behind makes a nice move. He comes towards us. The defender is basically standing with his left foot on the crease. He's not there right now, but he has his left foot. He'll slide to his right and have his left foot on the crease. And the attacker clearly goes in a direction where there's really no room. He's going in a place that he shouldn't go. So we'll run it through, and I think he's definitely diving in a direction that is not away. He's going to a place he shouldn't go to, and the defender makes a legal play. Quick move here. Tries to go in a position there is no space. 43 in blue is clearly on the crease line and in a good defensive position. This obviously is a hung up play. He contacts the player legally from basically the front and side, and the attacker is way too tight. The goaltender is in his position. His feet are actually on the goal line. So this attacker is definitely inside too far. It's clearly not the proper direction, and he's going to receive a foul for that.
And what we're looking at is he's in the legs of the goaltender. If you watch it live, it's a little clearer, and it's got to be a minimum 2 minutes.
Right. And the referees do a good job with this. They're right there. I mean, they're right in on this play. They follow the play again. This is as close as we can get for this positioning. They communicate. They get together and talk about it. And that's what we're looking for on those plays. PJ, we got any other comments?
Sorry, I was muted. I try not to type and while not muted. No, I think just to reiterate again, because it's not stopping. That guys, again, go back, look at the clips, every single one of the clips. You guys are commenting back and asking questions as this is TA's opinion. That this is not TA's opinion. These are statements of fact. These are rule interpretations. So go back, watch the clips, and adjust your judgment based upon these rule interpretations. I've never said it that harshly or firmly before, but I feel like there's like a debate here. That there is no debate. These are the approved rulings, and I don't know how else to say it. So I'm sorry, but I don't know how else to get this point across. Other than that, TA, I'm good.
Got it. Yep.
Yeah,
The point of this whole thing, fellas, was defensive contact. Really, that's the thing. Make sure that we're calling defensive contact. I believe we've been a little too lax on it. It's something that we would call in another part of the field that we haven't been calling around the crease because there's so much that's going on.
And I just want to go back, and I know a lot of the consternation, but Tommy is trying to help us. And if we ran different scenarios, and let's say we had that bing bang play, dive, not away, cross check that we've seen here forever, all in the same time frame, and the ball ends up being loose. That's when we need to go AP, right? That's what Tommy is trying to help us with. Bing bang boom. Who did what, and the ball is loose, we blow it dead, or to the AP.
That's essentially it.
Never going to be perfect. All we can do is try to help.
Last couple here are body checks. These are the last two we have, guys. Body checks this is just to refer back to the last director's call. First one's a legal body check. Second one is not so much. We believe this one's a clean, hard body check. The guy doesn't clean him out. Trust your partners. Call the areas that you're in. The referee on this play was the unofficial, passed on this, and his partner from a distance away made a call or a flag. So let's run it through, Tommy. We'll take a look at it. This is a player comes, obviously it's a substitution scenario. The player was on the field of play, the official on the lead. It's clearly he didn't finish him completely. He bumped into him in the chest. We believe this is a clean body check. It's part of the game.
If I slow this down, I hope they slow it down for you. I want to get out of there. You can see the contact is definitely in the numbers.
And he didn't come very far to do that. He was standing there.
Yeah. So shoulder to the numbers, good hit. That's all we're saying.
A lot of that was initiated by the player.
Running down the field, right?
This second one is about protecting the shooter. We've been doing this a lot. I want to just reiterate how important this is. We've had videos over the last couple of years on this. We need to stay with the shooter, protect the shooter. If you watch this, there's contact that's multiple minute hit to the head. We miss it. We don't have a flag. Single at one point you can see is following the ball. And Trail needs to make sure he helps with this play with the shooter because he's got a pretty good view of it. If we look at it, you're looking at the lead has clearly got the end line. You'll see that Single has his hand in the air for direction, which means he was probably looking at a different spot other than at the play itself, and the Trail has a chance to help out here. But in defense of the Trail, he may have glanced at the coach just as this play was happening, and missed it. So we clearly missed it. So we want to make sure the point of this is to make sure we protect the shooter, protect the passer in this scenario, and these are ones that we don't want to miss because we get a lot of phone calls and emails on these.
Yeah, this probably should have been a multi-minute foul with the forearm to the head as such delivered.
And again, I've said this to you guys. I think it's important. We have the tools to make some of these calls. I think we need to do it. I'm not saying call every hit. Obviously, we had some good legal checks in there. But if we protect the shooter and call the high hits, they aren't going to happen.
All right. Well, that brings us to the conclusion. We do appreciate you guys attending, and hopefully we've helped a little bit without making major confusion. And our next call is April 11th, which this call came around in quite the hurry. So by the time April 11th comes around, we'll be in 80% of all the games being played that have been played. So we'll talk.
I'd like to take this time on behalf of NILOA and our whole membership to thank U.S. Lacrosse for their continued sponsorship and partnership, and most especially Charlie Obermeyer and Gordon Corsetti for the hard work that they do in leading up to behind the scenes and getting this ready to go. Thanks again to U.S. Lacrosse for this. Take care, guys. Have a good evening.